Hello, guys and gals, and this is part 37 of our reading of the Harvard Classics. And the Harvard Classics are composed of, I'll find them right here, the Apology, Phaedo, and Credo of Plato, translated by Benjamin Jowett, the Golden Sayings of Epictetus, translated by Hastings Crosley, and the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, translated by George Long, edited by Charles W. Eliot, LLD, with introduction and notes. And we're going to go over the copyright information, which clearly says copyright 1980, 1937, and 1907 by Grolier Enterprises Corporation. Anyways, we are still reading the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, and we are going to pick up where we left off. Let's see. Number 10. There is no nature which is inferior to art, for the arts imitate the nature of things. But if this is so, that nature which is the most perfect and the most comprehensive of all natures cannot fall short of the skill of art. Now all arts do the inferior things for the sake of the superior. Therefore the universal nature does so too. And indeed hence is the origin of justice, and injustice and the other virtues have their foundation. For justice will not be observed if we either care for middle things, things indifferent, or are easily deceived and careless and changeable. Okay. Or to number 11. Let's see. If the things do not come to thee, the pursuits and avoidances of which disturb thee, still in a manner thou goest to them, let then thy judgment about them be at rest, and they will remain quiet, and thou wilt not be seen either pursuing or avoiding. Number 12. The spherical form of the soul maintains its figure when it is neither extended towards an object, nor contracted inwards, nor dispersed, nor sinks down, but is illuminated by light by which it sees the truth of all things, and the truth that is in itself. Number 13. Suppose any man shall despise me, let him look to that himself. But I will look to this, that I be not discovered doing or saying anything deserving of contempt. Shall any man hate me? Let him look to it, but I will be mild and benevolent towards every man, and ready to show even him his mistake, not reproachfully, nor yet at making a display of my endurance, but nobly and honestly, like the great Plotian, unless indeed he only assumed it. For the interior parts ought to be such, and a man ought to be seen by the gods, neither dissatisfied with anything nor complaining. For what evil is it to thee, if thou art now doing what is agreeable to thy own nature, and art satisfied with that which at this moment is suitable to the nature of the universe, since thou art a human being placed at thy post in order that what is for the common advantage may be done in some way. Number 14. Men despise one another and flatter one another, and men wish to raise themselves above one another and crouch before one another. Okay, number 15. How unsound and insincere is he who says, I have determined to deal with thee in a fair way. What art thou doing, man? There is no occasion to give this notice. It will soon show itself by acts. The voice ought to be plainly written on the forehead, such as a man's character is. He immediately shows it in his eyes, just as he who is beloved forthwith reads everything in the eyes of lovers. The man who is honest and good ought to do exactly like a man who smells strong, so that the bystander, as soon as he comes near him, must smell whether he chooses or not. But the affectation of simplicity is like a crooked stick. Nothing is more disgraceful than a wolfish friendship, false friendship. Avoid avoid this most of all. The good and simple and benevolent show all these things in the eyes, and there is no mistaking. Number 16. As to living in the best way, this power is in the soul, if it be indifferent to things which are indifferent. And it will be indifferent if it looks on each of these things separately and all together, and if it remembers that not one of them produces in us an opinion about itself, nor comes to us, but these things remain immovable, and it is we ourselves who produce the judgments about them, and as we may say, write them in ourselves. It it being in our power not to write them, and it being in our power, if perchance these judgments have imperceptibly got admission to our minds, to wipe them out. And if we remember also that such attention will only be for a short time, and then life will be at an end. Besides, what trouble is there at all in doing this? For if these things are according to nature, rejoice in them, and they will be easy to and these will be easy to thee. But if contrary to nature, seek what is conformable to thy own nature, and strive toward this, even if it brings no reputation. For every man is allowed to seek his own good. Number 17. Consider whence each thing is come, and if what is and for what it consists, and into what it changes, and what kind of thing it will be when it is changed, and that it will sustain no harm. Number 18. If any have offended against thee, consider first what is my relation to men, and that we are all made for one another. And in another respect, I was made to be set over them, as a man, as a ram over the flock, or a bull over the herd. But examine the matter from first principles from this. If all things are not mere atoms, it is nature which orders all things. If this is so, the inferior things exist for the sake of the superior, and these for the sake of one another. Okay. Second, consider what kind of men they are at table, in bed, and so forth, and particularly under what compulsion in respect of opinions they are, and as to their acts, consider with what pride they do what they do. Third, that if men do rightly what they do, we ought not to be displeased. But if they do not rightly, it is plain that they do so involuntarily and in ignorance. For, wow, this is long. Okay. Involuntarily and in ignorance. For as every soul is unwillingly deprived of the truth, so also is it unwillingly deprived of the power of behaving to each man according to his deserts. Accordingly, men are pained when they are called unjust, ungrateful, and greedy, and in a word, wrongdoers to their neighbors. Fourth, consider that thou also doest many things wrong, and that thou art a man, like others. And even if thou dost abstain from certain faults, still thou hast the disposition to commit them, though either through cowardice or concern about reputation, or some such mean motive, thou dost abstain from such faults. Fifth, consider that thou dost not even understand whether men are doing wrong or not, for many things are done with a certain reference to circumstances. And in short, a man must learn a great deal to enable him to pass a correct judgment on another man's acts. Sixth, consider when thou art much vexed or grieved, that man's life is only a moment, and after a short time we are all laid out dead. Number seven, or seventh rather. Seventh, that it is not man's acts which disturb us. For those acts have their foundation in men's ruling principles. But it is our own opinion which disturbs us. Take away these opinions, then, and resolve to dismiss thy judgment about an act as if it were something grievous, and thy anger is gone. How then shall I take away those opinions? By reflecting that no wrongful act of another being no wrongful acts of another being's shame on thee. For unless that which is shameful is also bad, is alone bad, thou also must of necessity do many things wrong and become a robber and everything else. Eighth, wow, this keeps going. Consider how much more pain is brought on us by the anger and vexation caused by such acts than by the acts themselves, at which we are angry and vexed. Ninth, consider that a good disposition is invincible if it be genuine and not an affected smile and acting a part. For what will the most violent man do to thee if thou continuest to be of a kind disposition towards him, and if an opportunity offers, thou gently admonishest him, and calmly correctest his errors at the very time when he was trying to do thee harm, saying, "Not so, my child. We are constituted by nature for something else. I shall certainly not be injured, but thou art injuring thyself, my child," and show him with gentle tact and by general principles that this is so, and that even bees do not do as he does, nor any animals which are formed by nature to be gregarious. And thou must do this neither with any double meaning nor in the way of reproach, but affectionately and without any rancor in thy soul, and not as if thou wert lecturing him, nor yet that any bystander might admire, but either when he is alone and if others are present. Remember these 9 rules as if thou hast received them as a gift from the Muses, and begin at last to be a man while thou livest. But thou must equally avoid flattering men and being vexed at them, for both are unsocial and lead to harm. And let this truth be present to thee in the excitement of anger, that to be moved by passion is not manly, but that mildness and gentleness, as they are more agreeable in human nature, so also are they more manly. And he who possesses these qualities possesses strength, nerve, and courage, and not the man who is subject to fits of passion and discontent. For in the same degree in which a man's mind is nearer to freedom from all passion, in the same degree also is it nearer to strength. And as the sense of pain is a characteristic of weakness, so also is anger, for he who yields to pain and he who yields to anger, both are wounded and both submit. But if thou wilt receive also a 10th present from the leader of the Muses, Apollo, and it is this, that to expect bad men not to do wrong is madness, for he who expects this desires an impossibility. But to allow men to behave so to others, and to expect them not to do thee any wrong, is irrational and tyrannical. Number 19. There are 4 principal aberrations. There are 4 principal aberrations of the superior faculty against which thou shouldst be constantly on thy guard. And when thou hast detected them, thou shouldst wipe them out, and say on each occasion thus, this thought is not necessary. This tends to destroy social union. This which thou art going to say comes not from the real thoughts. For thou shouldst consider it among the most absurd of things for a man not to speak from his real thoughts. But the fourth is when thou shalt reproach thyself for anything, for this is an evidence of the diviner part within the being overpowered and yielding to the less honorable and to the perishable part of the body, and to its gross pleasures. Number 20. Thy aerial part, and all the fiery parts which are mingled in thee, though by nature they have an upward tendency, still in obedience to the disposition of the universe, they are overpowered here in the compound mass, the body, and also the whole of the earthy part in thee, and the watery, through their tendencies, is downward, still are raised up and occupy a position which is not their natural one. In this manner, okay, sorry. In this manner, then the elemental parts obey the universal. For when they have been fixed in any place, perforce, they remain there until again the universal shall sound the signal for dissolution. It is not then strange that thy intelligent part only should be obedient and discontented with its own place, and yet no force is imposed on it, but only those things which are conformable to its nature. Still, it does not submit, but is carried in the opposite direction, for the movement towards injustice and intemperance, and to anger and grief and fear is nothing else than the act of one who deviates from nature. And also, when the ruling faculty is discontented with anything that happens, then too it deserts its post, for it is constituted for piety and reverence toward the gods, no less than for justice. For this for these qualities, who qualities also are comprehended under the generic term of contentment and the constitution of things, and indeed they are prior to acts of justice. Number 21. He who has not one and always the same object in life cannot be one and the same all throughout his life. But what I have said is not enough unless this also is added. What this object ought to be, for as there is not the same opinion about all the things which in some way or another are considered by the majority to be good, but only about some certain things but certain things it is, things which concern the common interest. So also ought we so also ought we to propose to ourselves an object which shall be of common kind, social and political. For he who directs all his own efforts to this object will make all his acts alike, and thus will always be the same. Number 22. Think of the country mouse and of the town mouse, and of the alarm and trepidation of the town mouse. Number 23 is Socrates used to call the opinions of the many by the name of lamy, bugbears to frighten lammy, bugbears to frighten children. Number 24, the Lacedaemonians At the public spectacle, or at their public spectacle, used to set seats in the shade for strangers, but themselves sat down anywhere. So, number 25. Socrates excused himself to um, Perdiccas for not going to him, saying, "If it is because I would not perish by the worst of all ends, that is, I would not receive a favor and then be unable to return it." Number 26. In the writings of the Ephesians, there was this precept constantly to think of someone of the men of former times who practiced virtue. Number 27. The Pythagoreans bid us in the morning look to the heavens, that we may be reminded of those bodies which continually do the same things, and in the same manner perform their work, and also be reminded of their purity and nudity. For there is no veil over a star. Number 28. Consider what a man Socrates was when he dressed himself in a skin, after Xanthippe had taken his cloak and gone out, and what Socrates said to his friends, who were ashamed of him and drew back from him when they saw him dressed thus. Number 29. Neither is writing nor is reading wilt thou be able to lay down rules for others before thou shalt have first learned to obey rules thyself. Much more is this so in life. Number 31. A slave thou art, free speech is not for thee. Number 31. And my heart laughed within. Number 32. And virtue they will curse, speaking harsh words. That's from Hesiod, Works of the Day. Number 33. To look for the fig in winter is a madman's act. Such is he who looks for his child when it is no longer allowed. And that's from Epictetus. Number 34. When a man kisses his child, said Epictetus, he should whisper to himself, tomorrow, perchance, thou wilt die. But thou art words of bad omen. No word is a word of bad omen, said Epictetus, which express any work of nature. Or if it is so, it is also a word of bad omen to speak of the ears of corn being reaped. Number 35. The unripe grape and the unripe bunch, the dried grapes, all are changes, not into nothing, but into something which exists not yet. Number 36. No man can rob us of our free will. Let's do number 36 again. My voice is kind of raspy. No man can rob us of our free will. And that's by Epictetus. Epictetus also said a man must discover an art, or rules, with respect to giving his assent. And in respect to his movements, he must be careful that they are made with regard to circumstances, and they be consistent with social interests, and they have regard to the value of the object, and as to sensual desire, he should altogether keep away from it. And as to aversion, he should not show it with respect to any of the things which are not in our power. Number 38. The dispute, then, he said, is not about any common matter, but about being mad or not. Number 39. Socrates used to say, what do you want? Souls of rational men or irrational? Souls of rational men. Of what rational men? Sound or unsound? Sound. Why then do you not seek for them? Because we have them. Why then do you fight and quarrel? And we are ready for chapter. Actually, I think I was wrong. This is actually chapter 12, not chapter 9. chapter 12. All those things which... Okay, wait. This is probably going to be... Yeah, this is going to be too long. We're going to need to pick this up next time. Okay, we are going to pick this up at 12:1. Let me write that down real quick. Got it. Okay. And with that, we are going to stop this reading here. If you like this content, we've been reading the Harvard Classics, specifically the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. If you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know I upload. Also, want to support me in any way, if you want to join the Discord server, all information will be in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.